So, good day, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about having a child in Mexico and the advantages. In this video, we're going to talk about something I see people asking about. That's giving birth in Mexico and whether having a child in Mexico can help you obtain legal status in the country. Yeah, you may have heard people call this childbirth route or birth tourism route, but I want to clarify what the actual means from an immigration perspective. Like what this actually means from an immigration perspective. One, question number one. Can you give birth to Mexico? Can you give birth to a child in Mexico? So for clarity's sake, there's no such thing as um childbirth route or anything like that. Of course, to give birth to a child in Mexico, you are either here in Mexico or you come into Mexico as a tourist. Or like we earlier mentioned in our two videos, first you're a student with your spouse, you're here, you get pregnant, that's a different case. But for the purpose of this video, we're talking about people that are outside the country but they want to come into the country to give birth. That's so you're coming in as a tourist. If you want to know more about coming into the country as a tourist, I made a video before this talking about how to get into the country through tourism. So now the question now is, can you give birth in Mexico as a tourist? Like now you're a tourist. You already got the tourism visa. Now can you come into the country and give birth? Remember that in the last video we talked about how tourists get 6 months. And of course, a pregnant woman is still eligible to travel at 3 months. She can still travel 3 months. 4 to 5 months she can still travel. As long as she's not really pregnant. So it means that you are already in the country. For instance, you're already in the country at 6 to 7 months. Let's see what 7. Now you're in Mexico as a tourist. And a tourist. Now the question is, can you give birth? Yes, you can, but then there are a lot of things to put in place. Documentation. Of course, as a pregnant woman, you need to be registered in an hospital. Because you are not a legal part of the country, you're not a student, you're not working, so you the possibility of getting registered in a government hospital is slim, so you'll be registered in a private hospital. As a pregnant woman, it's important that you are registered in an hospital for your antenatal care and every other thing for the test. So now you register in a private hospital. That's the first thing. Now, of course, after registering in an hospital, maybe we fast forward to childbirth. Remember that it's important to register in a hospital for all antenatal proceedings, for daily checkups, the status of the mother, the status of the child, and of course, I've made it known that as long as you are in the country, you can give birth, but then you have to register in an hospital. Yes, you register. They need all your COVID-19 certificate, your health history, COVID certificate, health history, among other things. So now, month here comes 9 months, and boom, baby's here. Baby's here. Question number two: what happens to the child? Now, when I say what happens to the child, now what is the nationality of that child? Is the child Mexican or Nigerian or South African? That is the parent country. Of course. So there's something called nationality by birth. A child that is giving birth a child that is giving birth in Mexico is Mexican. It's automatically Mexican. That's nationality by birth. Now, what comes with giving birth to a child in Mexico? So they have the registro civil. It is important to after childbirth. Now, now you're registered in a private hospital. The hospital gives you a letter saying that a letter saying that the child was born in the hospital. This letter is very, very important. Very important. This letter is very important. Remember to take it from the hospital because you will need it at the registrar civil where the child is registered. This is where the child gets the birth certificate. Don't forget to get this letter from the hospital where you register where your child is born. The hospital gives you a letter saying that the child was born in the hospital amongst other documents. When you get to registrar civil asks you for this particular letter from the hospital. It's like a certificate, yes, more like a certificate saying that oh the child was born in so hospital and so. Now, why do you need this registrar civil? This registrar civil gives you the birth certificate with this letter. In Mexico, birth certificates, you cannot joke with birth certificate. The birth certificate of the child is important because of a lot of things. With this birth certificate, you get the international passport of the child. And I know that people will wonder why is it important to get an international passport of a child? Well, we're going to get there. First is first. So this birth certificate is important. And then the birth certificate helps you get the international passport. Remember that the letter from the hospital when you give birth to the child is what gives you the birth certificate. Now, let's go back. Let's digress a bit. You have given birth to the child as a parent, as the child is Mexican. Child, Mexican. By virtue of birth. Parent, other nationality. Other nationality. Now, what is the advantage of giving birth to a Mexican child? Giving birth to a Mexican child can automatically give the parents a permanent residence. Residence. Not temporary, a permanent residence because you have a Mexican child. You automatically get a permanent residence as a parent. Now, what are the things that are required for you to get your permanent residency? Requirements for permanent residency. Requirements. Of course, you already have a child. That's the most important thing. Now, this child needs a birth certificate. This birth certificate is gotten, you get it from the civil registry. Registry. Now, you get the birth certificate from the civil registry. When you get to the civil registry will ask you for the letter from the hospital where you give it, like a certificate from the hospital rather. Certificate from the hospital where you gave birth to that child for them to be able to issue you the childbirth certificate. Now, that's that of that. Requirement for permanent residence since you already have a child. Now you have a letter from the civil registry. The next thing to do is to get the international passport of the child. Passport of the child. So this means that you are going to what? You are going to file for international, you're going to like key in the details of the child for international passport. But mind you, there are different states that does this international passport for a child. It depends on the state in Mexico that you have. But what you need for this international passport is number one, the birth certificate of the child. B, a letter, not this certificate now. This certificate from the hospital is going to help the civil registry give you a birth certificate. Now, you first for the international passport, you need, of course, an appointment. An appointment. Appointment online. This appointment is done online. Two, the birth certificate. Then three, a letter from a pediatrician. By now, your child will already have a pediatrician that takes care of him. So they need a letter from the pediatrician saying that the child was born in Mexico, the child is in good state, the name of the child in the letter. Yes. Informing them that the child was born in Mexico, amongst other things. Give me a second. This letter is very important because that's what they understand at the passport office. So you are going to the passport office. You need a letter from the pediatrician. So this is the Mexico pediatrician. This letter is important because it contains the name of the child, hospital he was born, he or she was born, health condition, and also very important, the stamp of the pediatrician and the date in this letter. Without this letter, you will not get the international passport. And mind you, in Mexico, the mother and the child will be present for an international passport. The pictures and the details of the mother and the father of a minor are always in a Mexican passport as long as they are minor before 18. Now, after getting this international passport, we are taking ourselves through the route of the permanent residency of the parents since they already have a child. The first thing is, of course, you have a child, you get the birth certificate with the letter from the hospital where the child was born, take it to the civil registrar to get the birth certificate. Now, after getting birth certificate, so requirement number one is birth certificate. After getting the birth certificate, you need to go to the passport office to get the child's international passport. You know the reason why this international passport is important when we move forward. For the international passport, you need an appointment for the passport office depending on the state in which you are in Mexico. You need the child's birth certificate, just like you have it already in the first requirement. Then, very important, this is very important, it's not negotiable. You need a letter for a pediatrician stating the name of the child, the hospital he or she was born, the health condition of the child, and the stamp of the pediatrician. This is good because you can easily get it when you register in a private hospital because, of course, in the private hospital they have pediatrician, so you can get this letter from the pediatrician. This is very important because without this letter, you cannot get an international passport for the child. And you also need to know that the mother and the father of that child must be on ground to get an international passport because both of them would not just their details will be present in the international passport, but both parents will also have their pictures. They will capture both parents. So three people are going to capture for the international passport: mother, father, and the child. After this international passport, what's the third thing? Then both parents for a permanent residency, you need to register in the immigration section. They call it INM of Mexico for permanent residency. What are the requirements for you? You have to register online. Yes. It costs a thing, there's a cost to it. Yes. In 2025 was around, first you pay, I think, 2,000 and something pesos. There are two steps to it. And the second step you pay around 6,000 and something pesos. So, first things first, register for ILM permanent residency. For this ILM permanent residency, one of the requirements is the international passport of your child. Passport of your child, of the baby, and parents, of course. Then one, two, is birth certificate of the child. They need in Mexico, they need something that is linking both parents to the child. Birth certificate of the child. Of course, a birth certificate of the parents. If this birth certificate is not in Spanish, if it's in English, it needs to be translated. You need a translation to Spanish if it is not in Spanish. But if it's in Spanish, it's okay. But if it is not in Spanish, you need a translation to Spanish. Also, you can reach out to me if you need a translation. There are a lot of organizations that do translation of documents. I can always give you a contact if you need one. So for the permanent residency, yes, there's a cost and there are two levels to it. Level one is where they check if all your documents are complete, if you are actually linked to that child. So they need the child's national passport and of course the parent's national passport. They need the birth certificate of the child and birth certificate of the parent. Now the first level where you pay 2,000 is the registration, informing the government that, oh, I have a child and because of my virtue of my child, I need a permanent residence. Now you pay 2,000 or something like, I really cannot remember how much it is. I also need to know that these things are reviewed yearly so it could change. Now, this first step is to validate your document. So it takes like a week. It takes maximum of a week. Things change, of course, you need to know. Then if they confirm that you are the mother, you are the father, and everything fine, they ask you to now come back for the enrollment of foundation. That's the way you pay this. About 6,000 pesos. This also takes about a week. And then what and just like that, you have become a permanent resident. They give you a residency card and then you can live comfortably in Mexico. You can. Of course, another requirement here is where you live. You need the utility bill where you live. You need the utility bill whereby it is when the hotel, if it's an Airbnb, hotel, Airbnb. You can always reach out if you need any questions at all. Just a chat in the way. And just like that, you get your permanent resident. You can live in the country, you can come in, you can go out. I'm going to let you know an advantage to this also. So in Mexico, there's something about child and parent. Child and parent. A child is like a jackpot for the parent. For instance, now you have a Mexican son, and then you automatically become a PR owner as a parent. And now you as a parent, you also have a parent, right? That's the grandparent of the child, right? Grandparent. Because you have a PR, right? You can file, you had it. As long as there's a linkage between you and your parent, you're like you answer the same surname, you can also file for PR for the grandparents. You can see how interesting this is. It's a loop because you already have a Mexican son, automatically you get a PR, and then your parents also get a PR. This is very interesting. And then I'd like to stop here. If you need anything, any more information, documentation, how to assist you, I'm just ADM away. And I would like to make one clarification. There's no Mexican visa or immigration category officially called a childbirth route. No. You can only of course, give birth to a child in Mexico if you are either officially allowed to live in Mexico or you come in as a tourist. I remember that when you come in as a tourist now, and you already give birth to a child, you need to forget about the status of tourism because your status already changed, right? So I'm going to tell you that it's important that you do this. For instance, you have a 6 month tourism, your wife gave birth in the fourth month. To be on the safe side, try to wrap all these things up, this process up before your your visa expires. Like you have 2 months to do all of this. It is doable. I tell you, I'm giving you from experience. You can do all of this in a month or two. Yes, 2 months is okay. It is doable. You can do all of that in 2 months. Thank you once again for joining me on this section. I hope that things fall in well for us. Enjoy your day.